Welcome to Caregiver SOS On Air, presented by the WellMed Charitable Foundation, with nationally known gerontologist Carol Zernail and award-winning veteran broadcaster Ron Aaron. This program provides health, wellness, and other information for caregivers who are vital to the health and well-being of so many people across our country. And now, here are your hosts, Ron Aaron and Carol Zernail.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the award-winning Caregiver SOS On Air. I'm Ron Aaron. We are delighted to have you with us today. And our guest wins the award for the furthest from our studios. We'll be talking in just a couple of moments to Kari Berit, and she's hanging out in Norway, a couple hours north of Oslo, on her own private little fjord. Our co-host, Carol Zernail, is with us. Carol has a master's degree in social gerontology, some 30 years' experience in the field. Carol's the co-chair of the Raise Family Caregiving Advisory Council, and she's executive director of the WellMed Charitable Foundation. And Carol Zernail, it's great to have you with us.
Well, it's great to be here, and I'm so glad to have Kari with us today. Norway is on my list, top of my list of places to go. So, and she's proving you can survive in winter in Norway right there.
You can.
Well, we're delighted to have you with us. Let me take a moment and introduce Kari. Kari Berit helps and says that supported, appreciated, not guilty, and energized caregivers give the best of care. She calls this the S.A.N.E method in learning small ways to recharge your batteries on a daily basis. Kari has spent her career raising awareness of the total family caregiving experience, and she can have families help with focus on family dynamics. She's the author of the Unexpected Caregiver and Mental Fitness Guide, both published by Attainment Company. And for some 30 years, Kari has been addressing industry associations, private business groups, financial institutions, and religious organizations, helping professionals and families handle the challenges and disruptions that often accompany caregiving. And Kari Berit, thanks for joining us on Caregiver SOS On Air.
My pleasure. It's good to be here.
What got you involved in caregiving? What was the impetus for you?
When I was doing my master's degree, which started out in Scandinavian studies, I realized that I did not want to be a professor in Scandinavian studies, but I loved working with older adults and teaching language to them. That got me over to the continuing and adult education department at University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I got a master's in adult education. But I focused on what were they doing at independent living communities to provide activities for these folks, which then led me to working in assisted living and dementia care communities in Denver, Colorado. And what I found was that while I was quote unquote keeping the residents busy, their family members were coming in and saying, oh my gosh, please find something for mom, for dad to do because they're calling me all the time. And I thought, there's a disconnect here. So when I left my role in management, I started talking to family caregivers, and I thought, family caregivers are a lot like the people that work in assisted living and dementia care communities, except that they're not trained in the same way. But they have to find ways to support medically, psychologically, socially their loved ones. So that's what got me into it. Plus, I had a mother with Huntington's disease, and I helped take care of my grandpa and all those things, those personal pieces.
Now, when you say you took care of your grandfather, what were you doing?
The whole family was around him at the time. I lived in Red Wing, Minnesota, and I laugh because I have one article that I wrote called Naked Grandpa, or When It's Time to Ask for Help, because the family, and we were all around him, were always gathered in the living room because he loved to see us eat. He wasn't eating himself, but he loved to be. And one time I came in and I said, why isn't everybody in the living room with Grandpa? And they said, because he's naked. And he had started not wanting to wear clothes, but he also started calling me and his daughter at 2 and 3 in the morning, asking for very odd things. So we were really wearing down. So my role in that situation, as in many of my roles with my family, is to say, oh, okay, folks, I think we need to take another step. We need to move along. We can no longer care for Grandpa at home because none of us had the strength to lift him from his Barcalounger to the portable toilet that was right next to him, for example. So I'm the one that said, let's look for some help.
But that's such an important voice, Kari. It's really to be that person to give the family permission, and to recognize that there are limitations to all of us as caregivers.
Oh my gosh, there certainly is. Yeah. And you know, I talk, and that's a good way to put it too. That was my role. But I have 3 siblings. We all had roles. And I think one of the things I teach in my book too, and in my presentations, is we have to find what roles we all play. Because instead of griping the fact that, you know, oh, my brothers didn't come in time for this or that, or they're not doing, no, my brothers do not give care like I do.
All right, hold that thought.
They never have, and they never will.
Kari, hold that thought. We're going to come right back to you. I'm going to let folks know who may have just joined us. You're listening to the award-winning Caregiver SOS on air. I'm Ron Aaron, along with our co-host, Carol Zernail, and we're talking with Kari Berit. She's hanging out in Norway, but began her journey in caregiving in the great state of Minnesota and Wisconsin, and we've been following her care for her naked grandpa and others. And as you looked for a place for him to live, how did that work out?
Well, Red Wing's a small community, so it was actually not very difficult. First of all, we had to look for the places that had space, that had openings. And then of those few places, couple places, which ones best fit his needs and what could his pocketbook afford. So it wasn't that difficult for me because I'm used to doing that. But again, for untrained family caregivers, this is daunting.
And you wrote a book about the unexpected caregiver. Isn't that often the case for caregivers? They get that call from the ICU, Grandpa's here, we need your help.
Absolutely. Or it sneaks up on them too. I mean, unexpected can be, my best friend died of complications, but one of them young onset Alzheimer's. And it's recognizing that the people that are nearest to her don't see all the little changes, but we who pop in and out are like, we raise the alarm bells and said, I think you're doing too much.
Yeah. And that, you know, that's another great point, because I think we just had the holidays, and that's when family members, they haven't seen mom and dad. They don't realize how much someone has changed, their loved one's changed from visit to visit. The people on the ground it's seeing it gradually, but it just stuns them when you've been gone for a while. And you see that, especially if there's dementia involved, there's a normal drop in functionality that happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are your recommendations for someone who discovers suddenly they're a caregiver? How do they begin that journey, and how do they develop the skills they need to make that successful?
There are resources out there, and there are people who are doing training in it. But I think what the things that I recommend, first of all, is to recognize within yourself that, wow, this is a new role, and it's okay. I'm going to make mistakes. That's a tough one to swallow because we're not trained to do it. But then to reach out to see what is out there online, Caregiver Alliance, caregiver support. What's on there? I have people contact me, just have that initial conversation. What do I do? Because you need to figure out, there isn't a one size fits all here, because your loved one that you're caring for, you got to figure out what the needs are. But I think the first thing is to just take a big breath and realize that this is a new role, and I'm going to need some help.
I always say, strap in. We're going for a ride.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I came up with my S.A.N.E method, because the first letter in S.A.N.E is supported. So it's asking for help. It's going out there and searching for what kind of help is out there. What do I need? Learn as much as you can.
But
I love that you put it first. I love that you put that first, though. Getting the support and help.
So many caregivers don't ask for help.
No. No, because I think it's our parents, or in my case, my specialty is with aging parents. We should be able to do this. We should be able to just, but no, how many of us are trained to change our dad's depends? No, we're not. No.
And then
just like new parents. I mean, you take classes for new parents, and everybody thinks that's normal. But, we haven't gotten to the point where healthcare is going to train you in a very systematic way to be a caregiver for an older loved one.
Correct.
And then after supported, you talk about appreciated.
Yeah, and I'm really talking about that appreciation from within, being kind to yourself and realizing that you are doing what you can. You are doing the best job you can. And to recognize that in yourself. And maybe you need to talk to other people and have them help you remember that.
Yeah. And that's a really difficult one because our first reaction is guilt, right? It's just guilt all the time.
And that's why not guilty comes after that. Because we are so and I again that issue of self-kindness comes in under not guilty. You're gonna mess up. You're gonna wish you had done XYZ. My dad died in 2023, and I still wake up sometimes wondering, did I ask enough questions to the doctor? Could we have done one more thing? Yeah. I have to stop myself and say, you know what, Kari? You did the best job you could do.
See, for me with my mother, it was the support hose. She was determined to wear these horribly tight support hose that were just crazy to get on. Yeah. And I was always mad, always angry, but that's what she wanted. And I did not back it up, be patient enough to allow her to have the support hose that she really wanted to wear, even if they were twisted and uncomfortable, whatever.
We're going to pick up on this in just a moment, including the support hose. I'm Ron Aaron. You're listening to the award-winning Caregiver SOS on air. Our guest hanging out near Oslo, Norway, is Kari Berit, and Carol Zernail, our co-host, is with us. This is the award-winning Caregiver SOS on air.
Well, thank you so much for listening to Caregiver SOS on air. We're delighted to have you with us. We come to you every week with a discussion of an issue, a problem, some accomplishments involved in caregiving with more than 60 million caregivers across this country, but most thinking they are the Lone Rangers. We try to bring you the latest information and help that can make that job easier and more manageable. Caregiver SOS on air takes a look at trends across this country. We provide tips on how to be a better caregiver and, most importantly, where you can go for help. On Caregiver SOS on air, we try to give you what you need to make that caregiving manageable and to provide you with the help that can make your life easier. I'm Ron Aaron. Carol Zernail and I are delighted to co-host this program, and we're thrilled you've joined us on the award-winning Caregiver SOS on Air podcasts available everywhere, brought to you by WellMed Charitable Foundation.
Hello, friend. Hello, friend. Really good to see you once again. Hello, friend. Hello, friend. Really good to see you once again.
We appreciate you staying with us right here on the award-winning Caregiver SOS on air. Our podcast available wherever you get your podcast. And we're also on the radio in several cities in Texas and Florida, but not Norway as yet. We're talking with our guest who wins the award for the furthest away from our studios. Kari Berit is with us, and she's got several books out that deal with a variety of aspects of caregiving. And we're talking about S.A.N.E, her acronym for Supported, Appreciated, Not Guilty, and Energized. What do you mean by energized?
What I mean by that is that's, I think, a place where we all want to be, because a lot of times caregivers say that they are so drained, they're so tired. So my goal is that if you ask for support, if you are kind to yourself, if you let go of the guilt and lean on other people, then you can be energized. And energized means that you are taking care of yourself, you're taking your walks, you're doing your Pilates, you're reading your books, you're going to movies, whatever it is that brings you energy, you have taken care of yourself enough that you are able to be energized for your own life.
You have to give yourself permission to do that.
Yes. Yes, sir, you do.
And how did you learn all this?
From watching the people that I both, when I was in assisted living and dementia care manager, and from talking with a lot of caregivers. But I have to tell you, I didn't just make this up. I used this when I was taking care of my dad. I mentioned earlier that the whole family was there. I had just been to Red Wing to check on Dad, and he fell and he had another incident, and the whole family was around him, and they all were kind of fumbling around, and I said, all right, I will come back. So I went back, and I came in the room, and here's all of us in a circle around them, and it was an intense time. And I remember that at one point he tried to get up, and he fell. And his wife at the time, not my mother, but his wife at the time, called me and said, Kari, they called 911. And I panicked. They can't call 911. He's in hospice. They can't. And I just panicked. And I raced over to the assisted living where he was. And one of the aides met me at the door with their arms wide open. And she hugged me and she said, honey, of course we know he can't go to the hospital, but we can't pick him up. So we had to call the good-looking fire guys to come. I said, oh, okay. And I calmed right down, laughed. And that night, I went back to my apartment where I was staying. And I said, all right, Kari, who are you asking for support? Are you appreciating all that you can and have done? Are you letting go of the fact that you don't know everything? Big deal. And what are you doing to take care of yourself? How are you being energized? So I have used this acronym as a check-in, as a way to keep myself in balance.
Well, I heard you say a couple of really important words. It was in your own life. Yeah. And so many caregivers, I think, give it all up and don't even expect to have their own life. They're just caregiving, and that's 100% of who they are and what they do. And so to give people permission to continue to live while caring is another huge gift.
Exactly. Yeah, it is. It is. I interviewed someone on my radio program when I had my radio program years ago, and she felt that was a lot of ego, that she was the only one that could do it. And as soon as she realized that no, she needed to ask for help, she could be her partner's sweetie again. You know?
Yeah.
Reclaim that role.
Yeah, which is so nice. So important.
You know, you mentioned you couldn't pick him up. A good friend of mine passed away recently. He fell around Christmas time and went downhill from there. He was a big man, 6'2", 6'3", some 220 pounds. Nobody could pick him up.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you learn to do that?
To pick him up?
Yes.
You call the fire. You call the people that are trained to do that.
You call the good-looking firemen.
Yeah, you call the good-looking firemen. I mean, seriously, those caregivers at the assisted living, they knew that they couldn't pick him up. There's no way they could pick him up. He was dead weight. You call for help.
And people who try to do more than they, especially physically, can do. I mean, you can hurt yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
And you can wear yourself out from doing too much over a long period of time. A lot of us underestimate the toll, the physical toll that just caregiving takes, as well as the emotional toll.
Exactly. Totally. And that gets back to that whole notion of energized. I know I'm more energized when I am exercising regularly, when I'm eating better. And sometimes during caregiving, intense caregiving situations, those are the things that just get tossed to the side. So we start to just feel worse and worse physically and emotionally and mentally.
Right. We don't feel sane, that's for sure.
No.
Talk to us about your other book, Mental Fitness Guide.
Yeah. You know why I wrote that? I wrote that originally for activity people in assisted living, dementia care, independent senior centers, because what I initially saw when I first started studying taking care of older adults was that we weren't providing older adults with adult-friendly, brain-engaging activities. So I studied under a woman named Marge Engelman, and she developed mental aerobics of the mind. And this book helps explain how to use her concepts and use her mental fitness cards or any types of cards, how to engage people in conversations that aren't just, oh, how are you today? How is the food? Blah. But how do you engage with someone with a disease that causes dementia? You can do that. You can absolutely do that.
How?
But you need to find ways to do that, and that's why I developed that book.
How do you do that?
One of the things that I do is I use Marge's mental fitness cards, and I'll just bring them and lay them on a table if I'm talking or having a coffee with someone, and they'll always pick up a card, and now we can start a conversation. It doesn't matter what's on the card. Or I walk around their apartment with them. Here's even a better idea. My husband is visiting his janitor at the school who's now got a disease that causes dementia. And what he does with them is they stand by his window and they point out buildings and what construction methods were used and how that, and it doesn't matter if he's speaking the truth or whatever, it doesn't matter. You're having a conversation, you're engaging with that person, drawing on something that they're interested in.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. You reminded me of a guest we had that they put the dad's, Dr. So-and-so above his bed. He wasn't a doctor, but that's what he'd like to be while he was in the hospital. And so that's what they put on this little name thing.
Yeah. It's as easy as just noticing something that they have on, something that's on their desk or in their kitchen. Tell me about this thing. Like I said, it doesn't matter if they say the wrong thing. I worked with a group of residents in a dementia care community once, and I said we had a picture of a bowl of fruit. And I said, what colors do you see? And what's the texture? And what do you think the artist was thinking when he or she was painting this thing? And they were all chatty. And this one guy, Ned, he got up and he looked at the painting. He says, I'm disturbed. And I said, why, Ned? He said, because there's a knife in there and that just spoils the whole painting. And I looked closer at the painting. There was no knife. And I said, well, why would that disturb you, Ned? Right? I don't care that there wasn't a knife in the painting. He said, well, then all the other residents chimed in. They also didn't like the knife. And I left that group and they were still talking about the knife. And it doesn't matter. They were engaged. They were talking about the painting. They were talking about the colors. They were talking about the fruit.
And how does engaging them in a discussion benefit them?
Their brain's working, for one thing. Right? They're using whatever part of the brain that is still firing. They're using it. And that's so cool to see. It's so cool to see.
Nice.
Yeah.
So before we let you go, how do you end up in Norway?
After a divorce, I found my college sweetheart who lived in Norway, and he too was divorced. We're both Americans. We met in Northfield, Minnesota at St. Olaf College. We went our own ways. When I was divorced, I found him. He was over here. I came over, and we got married.
Cool.
That's the long and the short of it. And the place we live in, at the farm that we bought, is called Norenge, which is Northfield. So we met in Northfield, Minnesota, and now we are in Northfield at a farm called Northfield.
Wow, that's fate.
Isn't that cool?
I like that. And the two of you making your life in your home there, are you continuing to help caregivers?
Yes. Yes, with things like I'm doing right now. I still come back to the States and I still hold presentations. I still do online training. I also have a travel business. So Americans who come over here, I put together their private tours.
And that's your
Right.
other website.
It's on my list now. Remember, now I know I'm just going to call Kari.
Then I'll be helping you, Carol.
All right. Thank you.
And have you picked up Norwegian or do you stick with English?
No. Both John and I spoke Norwegian before we came here. I taught at the Concordia Language Village, a program for adults, for 30 years. So I've spoken Norwegian most of my adult life, and John also studied Norwegian. So
got to say goodbye. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on. Kari Berit, we appreciate it. Carol Zernail, thank you. I'm Ron Aaron. Thanks for joining us on the award-winning Caregiver SOS On Air.
The executive producer for Caregiver SOS On Air is Daniel Calderon. The producer is Sharice Pendleton. And the associate producer is Catherine Oglesby. We'll see you next week on Caregiver SOS On Air.
You've been listening to Caregiver SOS On Air, an exclusive presentation of the WellMed Charitable Foundation. We welcome emails with suggestions and comments on this program at radio@wellmed.net. Join co-hosts Carol Zernail and Ron Aaron next week for more on caregiving, improving the health and well-being of caregivers and their care recipients everywhere. For more on caregiving and podcasts of our programs, visit caregiversos.org.